And now, Virgin Most Powerful Radio is pleased to present Hands-On Apologetics with renowned Catholic author and apologist, Gary Michuta.
And welcome, everybody. Hands-On Apologetics. You have entered into Virgin Most Powerful's Apologetics Dojo, and I am Gary Michuta, your host and sensei for this hour. And as you know, Hands-On Apologetics, we dive into explaining, defending the faith, clarity, charity, and confidence. And we got a great show in store for you today. Very interesting show. You know, one of the fastest-moving demographics is the people who consider themselves spiritual but not religious. And there's a lot of different connotations, different, what do I want to say, consequences for taking your own spirituality in your own hands and try to develop it by yourself. And today we're going to have Christine Flynn on. She is from the CatholicMama.com. She's a very interesting person in that, although this is one of those fastest growing demographic groups, she went the other way. She was originally religious, spiritual but not religious, and now is a satisfied, fulfilled Catholic mother, and she does great podcasts and stuff. We're going to talk about a new study that just came out. This is really interesting. It's a study that found that some popular forms of spiritual training, such as energy healing, aura reading, and to a lesser degree, mindfulness and meditation, correlate with both narcissism and spiritual superiority. This is interesting because I know in my work in the field, I kind of suspected that, but it's kind of cool to find out that there is actually a study out there that shows this correlation between the two. And so Christine's going to be coming on, and as a former spiritual but not religious person, we're going to talk about this study and its implications and how they'll affect how you can share the faith with people who are in that category. So she'll be coming up on the other side of the break. That's going to be a ton of fun. And in the meantime, of course, we have our Finding the Fallacy, where we learn an informal fallacy. Today's informal fallacy, by the way, is the argument from ignorance. And we also meet an early church father. Today's early church father is Aristides of Athens. Aristides of Athens. Not exactly a household name. And nevertheless, he is part of this wonderful cornucopia, if you will, of early Christian writings. And we'll talk about him also on this side of the break. But before we forget, it's time to give our shout-outs and welcomes to all of you. Starting off with our live stream people on Facebook, YouTube, all the other platforms. Hello, as I turn my attention over to the social media section of the dojo. And welcome, everybody. And also I want to welcome all of you listening on radio around the country and also via podcast around the world, either through our handy-dandy phone app, Virgin Most Powerful phone app, or our flagship website, which is virginmostpowerfulradio.org. That's where you can access the programs. You can scroll down to Hands-On Apologetics. And share with your friends. Tell your friends. Share it with people. That helps visibility. It helps extend our reach so that search engines begin to pick us up. So share them. If you could, subscribe. That also helps. Or like. You know, they're all easy and they're all free. And by the way, you know me, I'm all for freebies, especially when you could help benefit Catholics in the field in their mission. If it doesn't cost you a dime, you should do it. There's no reason not to. And I just got my email from Amazon Smile, and I just want to point out to everybody, you know, with COVID, I know a lot of us aren't going to the malls and doing shopping that way. A lot of us are using Amazon. And if you're going to shop on Amazon, why not sign up for Smile? It's very easy, and you pick the Catholic Resource Center. That is the parent company of Virgin Most Powerful Radio. And just put their name on there and just go ahead and buy your Christmas gifts. Now, the deal with Smile, as far as I understand, is that it doesn't cost you a cent, but rather the money that would normally go into Amazon's pockets, which are probably pretty full this time of year, a portion of that will go towards supporting Virgin Most Powerful Radio. So you can buy Christmas presents and help benefit the mission here at the station, help us keep us on the air, help us do more programming, also help our good friend Richard, the engineer, to get some state-of-the-art equipment, which I know he would love. I'm sure that's on his list for Santa. And you can make that possible just by signing up with Smile. And like I said, it doesn't cost you a cent. But if you're going to shop on Amazon, why not help others while you're shopping? So that's my little plug. I saw the email today, and I thought, man, that is such a good deal. I was contributing. I didn't even realize it throughout the year. Okay, why don't we jump to the finding of the fallacy? Today's finding of the fallacy, by the way, is the argument from ignorance. Argument for ignorance, for the Latinists out there, argumentum ad ignorantium. It's also known as the appeal to ignorance, in which ignorance represents a lack of contrary evidence. It's a fallacy, informal logical fallacy. It's used in debates where basically appeals to ignorance are sometimes used to shift the burden of proof. In other words, it's you don't show that there is any counter evidence, therefore it's true. This is the basic bottom line. And that's our early church father, or early church father for it. That's our finding the fallacy today. And let's jump to the major early church father for today, who is Aristides of Athens, who flourished sometime around AD 140. Like I said, Aristides of Athens isn't exactly a household name. He's not up there with Augustine or St. Ambrose or some of the other great early Christian writers. But nevertheless, he is an important early witness. So let's find out a little bit about him. Of Aristides, we know nothing beyond the meager information provided by Eusebius, who says of him that he was a man of faith and devoted to our religion, and in another place implies that he was a philosopher in the city of Athens. Only by dating his work can we provide a date for his life. So basically, the only thing we know about him is through this work and a couple of words that's preserved by Eusebius's church history. And man, that's the case for a lot of early church fathers, that we only know of them through what Eusebius thought was worth quoting in his church history. His only surviving work, by the way, is his Apology. And we're not really sure who it was written to. There is our Arminian fragment of an apology bearing the title To Emperor Hadrian Caesar from the Athenian philosopher Aristides, and is known definitely to be part of an Arminian translation of the Apology of Aristides, which was published in 1878 from a 10th century manuscript. Now, for internal reasons, suggests that the work is addressed not to the emperor familiarly known as Hadrian, but rather to his successor, who is Antonius Pius, since his full name is Titus Aurelius Hadrianus Antonius Pius. So it wouldn't be the earlier Hadrian, it'd actually be Antonius Pius. And actually a lot of 2nd century apologetic works are addressed to Antonius Pius, and whose reign was between the years 138 and 161 AD. The work is generally assigned to the beginning of Antonius's reign, excuse me, which is around 140 AD. And so let's do a couple of quotes from the work. Okay, how about this? When I saw the world and all that is in it is moved by a force, I understood that he who moves it and maintains it is God. For whatever moves something is stronger than that which is moved, and whatever maintains something is stronger than that which is maintained. I call the one who has constructed all things and maintained them God. He that is without beginning and eternal, immortal, lacking nothing, and who is above all passions and failings, such as anger and forgetfulness and ignorance and the rest. So here we have an appeal to the one, which in Greek philosophy was a development where they believed in many gods. They were polytheist, but they also believed that there was one God that was above all the other gods, and that is the one. And so basically what Aristides is doing is he's saying the God that us Christians believe in, that is the one, capital O for one. We probably have enough time for maybe one more. Let us proceed then, O King, to the elements themselves, so that we may demonstrate concerning them that they are not gods, but corruptible and changeable things, produced out of the non-existent by him who is truly God, who is incorruptible and unchangeable and invisible, but who sees all things and changes them and alters them as he wills. So here we have Aristides pointing to the Christian doctrine of creation ex nihilo. Actually, it's a Jewish Christian doctrine of creation ex nihilo. And also he provides some divine attributes, such as incorruptibility, unchangeability, invisibility, and omniscience. And that's our early church father for today, Aristides of Athens. Coming up next, we're going to be talking with Christine Flynn about a new study on New Age thought. Stay tuned.
Psalm 119 says, "Your word is a lamp for my feet and a light to my path." According to St. John Paul II, being a Christian means saying yes to Jesus Christ. It consists in surrendering to the Word of God and relying on it, but also endeavoring to know better and better the profound meaning of this Word. May God grant that we always rely on His Word, read it often, and put it into practice.
Did you know my mom's gonna have a baby?
She is? Will it be a boy? Or will it be a girl?
We don't know yet, but we heard the heartbeat and my dad said this is gonna be someone very special.
You mean like being a president? Or maybe a doctor?
Well, probably maybe like a singer or dancer, I think.
Hello, my name is Marianne Koharski. I'm the director of Pro-Life Across America. We know that every baby is a miracle and has the potential to do great things. If you know someone who is pregnant or in need of alternatives or assistance, or would like to support the work of Pro-Life Across America, please call 1-800-366-7773 or visit our website at prolifeacrossamerica.org. Pro-Life Across America is non-political and totally educational.
Pro-Life Across America, the Billboard people.
This is Terry Barber. I want to thank you for your support here at Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Here's an easy way to do it. If you're going to sell or buy a house, call Real Estate for Life, 877-543-3871, because they're going to get you a Christ-centered agent to purchase your home or to sell your home. And at the close of escrow, a portion of his commission goes right back to Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Call 877-543-3871. Thank you so much for your support.
Now, back to Hands-on Apologetics with Gary Machuda. If you'd like to join the conversation, call 888-526-2151. Here's Gary.
And welcome back, everybody. Hands on Apologetics. And we're going to talk about a new study. This is interesting. This is put out by Psych News Daily, and it is a study that links some forms of spiritual training to narcissism and spiritual superiority. And to help us talk about this new study, we have our very good friend, Christine Flynn, with us from thecatholicmama.com. And Christine, welcome to Hands On Apologetics.
Thank you, Gary. Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, what a birthday present to have you on my program.
Oh, I'm very glad to be here. I hope I make your birthday a little bit smooth as we go through your program today.
Yeah, I already had a few senior moments in the first segment, so old age is setting in very quickly. Yeah, this is a cool topic because, like I mentioned in the introduction to the program, that you kind of bucked the trend. There's a fast-growing demographic of spiritual but not religious that's growing by leaps and bounds. You went the other way. You were spiritual but not religious, and you came into the church. So this study really does link with your former background.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a researcher, so I wouldn't have been able to write the study. But as I was going through, I was like, wow, I could have written this. Just everything, all the ideas that some of these spiritual trainings or beliefs can lead to narcissism. I mean, wow, that was me to a T. So yes, very, very. It corresponds very similarly to my own belief system way back when.
Yeah, and as an apologist too, especially speaking with people in the New Age movement or that would use some of these techniques, I run into that too. That perfectly correlates with my experience talking to, people in that kind of spirituality. So,
yeah, I don't think it's that. I think it's more intuitive. Because of course there's a propensity to become very selfish or narcissistic when you or people who may be like that already may be attracted to this kind of spiritual practice because it's all about self. It's all about what you can do, all about me. So it makes sense to me why it would be attractive, especially the more advanced that you go into whatever trainings, Reiki and aura healing and all that. You're taking on more self-importance as you go, and the whole thing is based on yourself. So makes sense.
Yeah. Let me read the pull quote from the study. It says a new study has found that some popular forms of spiritual training, such as energy healing, oral reading, and to a lesser degree mindfulness and meditation, correlate with both narcissism and spiritual superiority. And so that's a very interesting point, Christine. The question is, does the techniques themselves turn you into a narcissist and someone who feels like they have spiritual superiority? Or is it already there and that you're finding these techniques because you want to reaffirm, your own narcissistic kind of tendencies?
Yeah, I mean, it's correlation, not causation, but it looks like it goes both ways in both directions. So you might develop this as you go along, or you could just be attracted to it because of your own personality as it stands, but as you get started. Yeah. Which I would say I don't, looking back at my childhood, I remember standing up against bullies, and I remember feeling like I was. I was there for the little guy. A lot of times in school ground scuffles, and I cared a lot about stray animals. But then even in my own life, as I got older and I got more into this sort of dream interpretation and chakras and all this stuff, I became more and more selfish along the way. And I had many people accuse me of having this holier than thou attitude. So it seems to me that as I got more interested in this and focused on myself more and more, it seems natural to follow that you would care about yourself more and more versus everybody else. Let them figure it out. That's their own spiritual stuff that they've got to work through. You focus on yourself. And it really did make me quite cold towards other people's sufferings or needs for a very long time.
Yeah. So it's kind of like going down a rabbit hole. Once you start, it just focuses more and more on self. Right.
Yeah. And it's the complete opposite of what we are as Christians. Christians is the whole Christian religion is so relational. right? It's between us and Christ, with each other, with the saints. I mean, we're constantly called to grow in our own faith and spirituality, but we're not islands by any means. We are a body. We are just one very important part, but one part of a body where everybody else is important as well. So it's a very, very different than what any of this type of spiritual training or mindfulness. And again, it says to a lesser degree meditation. It seems like, as far as the studies go, because there was three studies, small studies, that were brought together for this one larger paper. And for people who are interested in basic meditation practices, they were less likely to feel that kind of superiority. But once you got into actual training and you're putting a lot of time and effort into these more woo-woo type practices, then you start going the way of narcissism, unfortunately. But again, it makes sense to me.
Yeah. So maybe you can explain, because I know a lot of our listeners are probably cradle Catholics. They never, they might have heard people using some of these techniques, but aren't really sure what they are. Maybe just kind of give a broad outline of maybe the commonality between all these techniques.
Yeah, the idea, I think, with most the spiritual but not religious or the New Age type thinking, is that we are God. Our divinity is kind of trapped inside of us in this crude outer physical shell, and we need to. It depends on what practices will speak to you, but we need to find something that will help us get rid of this impediment to our own salvation. And we are both we are imprisoned in this physical body, and there is some higher part of us that knows that and wants to save us, the people who are here, currently. So it could be through, channeling energy forces in the universe, or dream interpretation, or, emptying yourself of any attachment to the physical world. And eventually you will kind of break free of this physical prison, and you will have attained some enlightenment, some oneness with the universe. You've fully realized yourself as the God creature that you are. If that makes sense. It's a mess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not something that I think an average person would trip into. It's oh yeah, I'm God. I didn't realize it.
But we do. It's so ingrained in our culture, even in small ways. It's not. Like, we see the horoscope in the comic section of the newspaper, if anybody still reads the newspaper. But I mean, that's there. We don't have, there might be a section for faith in the newspaper, but it's not part of like that main section of the newspaper as well. So it's just this idea that we are, special in and of ourselves. There's secret esoteric knowledge that the universe wants to share with us, and only those who are the most enlightened will be able to figure that out. Maybe that is through a horoscope that you read. But these things, I mean, even if you go into a weekend yoga class, they talk about tapping into your inner goddess, or the mat as being a sacred space. It does. I mean, even if we might not, many people are probably thinking, okay, well, I don't like, say Christianity, the people who have gone more the unaffiliated route. Maybe they don't go as far as to say, hey, I'm going to do all the research I possibly can under the New Age title in the bookstore. Probably not. Or I'm going to spend $1,000 on a retreat. Probably not. But there are those people there, and they also write articles or write magazine, or posts, or
sure,
or they write the marketing stuff for yoga retreats or whatever, and it starts to filter down until it just becomes part of our lexicon. I remember being, how many times you chant Om in certain yoga classes, or you talk about tapping into your inner divine or divinity. It's a mess, and it does wind up being that. Even if it also kind of looks at itself and promotes itself as being a much more sophisticated way of thinking than the cruder organized religion forms such as Christianity or Judaism or whatever. So for people who are not quite sure that they totally understand the religion that maybe they were raised in, and then this stuff starts to make its way into even just fitness classes at the gym or whatever it is, or it's in the newspaper. It's easy to take a quiz about what the stars say about you, online, this stuff just starts to filter in. And maybe there's a rise in, especially in young people who realize that they maybe believe in religion, but there's not anyone that they quite fit into. So it starts to be this cherry picking cafeteria like religion of one that everybody is, not everybody, but a lot of people are starting to create. So it's, and even in this study, as you go along and the more advanced or the more books or trainings that people have gone on to do, they become more narcissistic. So again, it's not everybody that's going to do this, but there is this range of promotion of self along the way. Because again, any of this, whether you're creating your own religion or tossing out stuff about the church that you don't like, bringing in something else, you're saying that you know best. And you are going to live your best life, and here's how I'm going to do it, and it's all about me. So it is inherently selfish.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because you're in the captain's seat. You decide what you need and what you don't need, and what's valuable and what isn't. So in a sense, you already kind of start acting like a small g god,
right.
What's good and evil, and yeah.
That's it. And look, moral relativism is a real problem, and we're seeing the continued effects of it in our society every single day. Again, so I'm glad this is the first study of its kind to measure the spiritual superiority. And I'm so glad that somebody actually finally did it, because it does show what I think a lot of us can just intuitively grasp of what's wrong with people who say that, well, I know it's my truth, me.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, actually, we only have a little bit of time left in this first segment, but I want to talk about, because I know in apologetics in the field, talking to New Agers and people who are spiritual but not religious, you definitely get this kind of narcissistic, self-centeredness there. But I often wonder if they realize that is how they are while they're in that worldview. You know what I mean?
No, I think it said somewhere in this study, I'm not sure if it was in this or in the overview that we are kind of referencing here, or in the complete study, but it did say that people who look at themselves as being very open-minded are the most narcissistic. So, and I got to tell you, at my worst, if I met Gary the apologist trying to teach me about Christianity, I would have been like, that is so cute, good for you, but I'm way, way better than you, but I'm open-minded.
There you go. We're chatting with Christine Flynn of thecatholicmama.com podcast about this new study, and more to come on the other side of the break.
Help the Helpless, a Minnesota St. Paul nonprofit organization chaired by Father of Tyr and volunteers, is humbly asking you for your kind support to help the poor and the handicapped children in India and Ecuador. Through financial support from the Help of the Helpless benefactors, the children are provided with clothing, food, education, shelter, and the teachings of the Catholic Church. The mission is to help children thrive and become self-sufficient young adults leading productive lives. We also provide aid to poor families in Ecuador with food baskets, medicines, medical assistance, and help with funeral needs for the deceased. The work in India is done by Father Antonio's organization, St. Mary's. In Ecuador, the work is being done by the Servant Sisters of the Home of Mother. You can call us at 877-762-8857. To learn more, please visit our website, www.helpthehelpless.org. God bless you.
If you shop on Amazon.com, there's an easy way to support Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Just visit smile.amazon.com and type in Catholic Resource Center under the desired charity. Now, when you log into your Amazon account and purchase products, a portion of it will automatically go to support Virgin Most Powerful Radio at no cost to you. Thanks in advance for supporting CRC and VMPR, and may God richly bless you and your family.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show. And they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow! That's 80%! realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
This is Jesse Romero. You're listening to Hands-On Apologetics with Jerry Machuda on Virgin Most Powerful Radio.
And welcome back, everybody. Hands on Apologetics, and we are chatting with Christine Flynn of thecatholicmama.com podcast. And by the way, check it out. She puts out great material. We're talking about this new study that correlates spiritual training, New Age training, like energy healing, aura reading, stuff like that, with narcissism and spiritual superiority. And so that last point you made, I thought was very insightful about that they become, supposedly they're aware, more self-aware than ever, yet they appear not to be aware of how narcissistic and the superiority complex that they have.
Right. Yeah. So it looks like the authors were measuring communal narcissism, which describes people who think of themselves as more nurturing and empathetic than others. So I'm generally the most understanding person, things like that. And yeah, I got to tell you again, as I, at my worst or at my deepest into this New Age stuff personally, I would have been the most open-minded, the most aware of other people's feelings and the universe, and yet I was certainly the most superior and narcissistic. by far. It's very humbling, and I want to just go back in time and shake my shoulders, but I can't do that. So at least I can talk about this so maybe other people can get shooken out of it. But to be honest, if you're already a narcissism in general is just a true narcissism is a incredibly difficult thing to shake out of. So I know some psychologists and psychiatrists simply say you can't get out of narcissism. And I was talking about this with my husband a while back because we both have had these narcissistic tendencies. I'm like, well, but we changed, how is that? And I realized, I was like, well, that's because we had a real conversion. And the conversion to Christianity, I mean, it was painful in a lot of ways, but you can't stay the same. And all that, letting go of self and destroying the ego that was promoted in the New Age spirituality comes to life in the person of Jesus. And again, with Christianity being relational, with caring about, you were really forced to care about other people in a way that you're not in these New Age spiritualities. So I guess from what I can tell, my own personal experience, the only real antidote to this poison of spiritual narcissism is full adherence to Christianity. Yeah.
I can see where it would, that kind of narcissistic tendency could really imprison somebody, because essentially you're laying down, you're looking at yourself in the mirror and deliberately forcing yourself to see things that you otherwise wouldn't want to see. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, kind of destroy your own self-image as a New Ager or what have you, and change.
It's interesting too. I mean, there's no objective measurement on how great you are spiritually. As a New Age person, you can't say, well, maybe you do have dreams that come true, but can you really objectively figure out the data on that? No, you can't. Or can you really heal somebody's chakras or whatever? I mean, maybe. I mean, to be honest, probably the devil might help you do that, and God may allow that suffering to happen. But there's no objective data that you can collect on yourself, so it really is so subjective. And maybe you do get lucky a couple times, and somebody says they feel better after coming to you for energy healing or whatnot. But you can just really puff yourself up as much as you want, because it's not like you're really good at sports and you can tell if you're really not good at sports, or you're really good at being wealthy. You can tell if you're not good at being wealthy, but with the spiritual stuff, it's impossible to figure this out, just by looking in. And it's interesting. since in converting to Christianity myself, all of the my previous hangups about my own worthiness completely was gone. So I think it's always interesting to me, like even when I was at my most spiritual but not religious new age, my largest fear was being mediocre and that other people would find out that I was mediocre. And that fear dogged me for years and years. And it was actually one of the reasons that I flitted from job to job, because I could tell really fun stories and talk about experiences that I had. And I remember an old boss of mine said, "I don't even know what's going to come out of your mouth next. This is great. You have such interesting stories." But I didn't want to stick around long enough because then I was afraid that somebody would see through all of this. And maybe I wasn't as interesting or spiritually advanced as I thought. But it was coming into Christianity where I was finally able to let go of that mediocrity, those fears of mediocrity, and really embrace everything that New Agers are trying to get to is fulfilled in the Christian religion, and both in the actual teachings of the Church, of the Catholic Church, how we express our faith, our developments in our own personal spirituality, how the divine is all around us at all times because God is with us all the time. Everything that New Agers are trying to get to, it's so clearly now to me. It's very clearly in Catholic Christianity, and unfortunately, I mean, it gives me the heebie-jeebies now, even reading stuff like this. I don't want to have anything to do with it, but here we are.
Yeah, right. So I guess the main motivations. And I'm interested to hear what you think is people maybe want to have control over things that they can't control. So the lure here is to gain these techniques, the self-awareness that then you can have the upper hand, and maybe lack of self-esteem too. That
absolutely.
Look at what I can do that you can't do.
Yeah, right. And again, there's this knowledge. I mean, we generally modern folk really hate the whole concept of suffering. So if we can do anything that will help mitigate our suffering, make us more aware of our surroundings, and also another thing that really ties in well to spiritual superiority and narcissism is that gives you full permission to get out of bad situations that you just immediately don't like, not stick around to commitments that you've made. It's just not the universe. This is not where my spiritual enlightenment lies. I can just bounce, and that's exactly what I did in a lot of cases. If I just immediately just didn't feel like doing anything, and there was no accountability, I could easily just fall back and say, well, this just doesn't feel right to me. Again, it's this isn't part of my spiritual path. I shouldn't work this job anymore. I shouldn't be friends with this person. I can get out of this relationship. And I felt like I didn't owe anybody any explanations. It was just they're probably just not as spiritually advanced as I am.
Yeah,
that's why they might be upset about me just not showing up to work one day.
Yeah. So this. Like I said, that certainly gives you a lot of control. Like you said, you can dismiss reality or portions of reality at your own whim. That this reality is just not. I don't enjoy it, so it's not part of what I'm all about, and therefore.
Right, and again, the physical reality, what we're living in, is a prison, and we need to figure out ways to escape it. And so, of course, if this physical reality here at this workplace is not conducive to my happiness, then I can leave. But our Christian religion tells us that no, of course, we are part of the world, but not of the world. But this is still a reality. This life that we are living isn't just some illusion. It is really, really happening, and it is our ship that's carrying us home. So where our ultimate home is going to be, well, we decide that. But this is all real. This isn't something that we can just escape, or we're trying to escape from because it's a horrible, no good prison, right?
Yeah, very good. Yeah, and dismissing people too. Christianity, because we're all made in the image and likeness of God, and every person, at least potentially, it could be bought, redeemed by Christ. it forces us to look at other people like we would look at Christ, our potential Christ, right?
Right, right. Which
Where
means that we really.
Go ahead.
Yeah, well, it means that we actually care about the sufferings and struggles of other people, which in the spiritual realm, again, the spiritual but not religious New Age realm, that's not your problem. That's you might be able to help them find their path if you even feel like doing that, but that's on them. That they're suffering, they have to figure that out. You figure out your own suffering, I'll figure out mine. We're all good that way. We're all islands, so you don't have to look to the rest of the world. And I think it's so interesting. Studies have shown that people who are Christians, good practicing Christians, are much more charitable. They donate more of their time and money than do the New Age or unaffiliated crowds. And I think that makes sense. We this is a relational religion. We are constantly being reminded that there's human dignity and worth to every single person. Which again, in the New Age, you in a New Age situation, you might not like somebody. Well, they might not be as spiritually advanced as you and not worth your time. Leave them alone. Go away. Yeah. So again, it promotes so much selfishness constantly, and just it fails. It fails from the very start to be anything but selfish.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and especially when the New Age view of evil, that if something bad happens to you, if someone's suffering, that's because they wanted to suffer. They're the ones causing their own evil, right? So,
right. Yeah.
It's almost like you're detached from it.
Right. Yeah. That was their choice, and we have to respect their choice and their free will. Yeah. It's either that I used to believe that we chose kind of all the main points in our lives before we even got to this life. So anything bad that happened was agreed upon before, and well, that's their problem then. Yeah, it's so selfish. Or there's that, the dualism where we've got good and evil, two equal but opposing forces that are battling it out at all times. Does it really matter? If something evil happens now, well, there will just be another good that will outweigh it or even it out later on. So it doesn't really matter if you mess with that balance. It'll all balance out at some point.
Yeah, that's interesting. It almost goes all the way back to the pagan understanding of fate, that your destiny is fated this way. And so if you see a beggar on the street, you don't pay attention to him because that's what they're fated to be, and it can't change, Except the difference is it isn't fate as an external thing. It's a fate that person's causing.
Right.
Okay. We're chatting with Christine Flynn about this new study on spiritual superiority. Stay tuned.
Welcome, Daniel. You're on the line. What's on your mind, brother?
Hi, I just wanted to share a testimony about Virgin Most Powerful Radio. I had a buddy at work who, he's a lukewarm Catholic guy, and I wanted him to start listening to the Terry and Jesse show, so I kept telling him to download the app, and he kept putting me off. Until one day, I grabbed his phone and I downloaded the app for him. I went on vacation, and I kept telling him to listen to it. He was kind of put me off. I came back from vacation. He comes to my cubicle, and he says to me, "Hey, man, I've been listening to Terry and Jesse's show, and it's great." And it's made a big impact in his life. The guy, he's going to weekly adoration a couple times a week. He goes to the Mass in the morning. He's an on-fire Catholic, and he promotes the Terry and Jesse show on the Virgin Most Powerful Radio.
Daniel, what a testimony. And I want to encourage our listeners to get those cards by going to virginmostpowerfulradio.org and do what Daniel's doing. Go out and spread the faith by inviting people to listen to Virgin Most Powerful. Daniel, thanks for your testimony, brother. God love you.
You're welcome.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show, and they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow, that's 80%. realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE-US1.
Now, back to Hands-On Apologetics with Gary Machuda. If you'd like to join the conversation, call 888-526-2151. Here's Gary.
And welcome back, everybody, to Hands-On Apologetics, and we're chatting with our good friend, Christine Flynn, about this new study that's put out by, I had it for Psych News Daily, and the study links some forms of spiritual training with narcissism and spiritual superiority, and specifically New Age training. We should probably specify that. So
yeah, and it seems like the more
Rosary wouldn't do this.
the more advanced you go into this kind of New Age training, like Reiki and energy healing, aura, chakras, that sort of thing. More so than mindfulness and meditation. That's on the lower end. It still has some kind of correlation, but it's definitely as you move up the move into more deeper New Age practices is where you find most of this.
Yeah. So we were just going through your past experience and how your own experience kind of jives with this study, which is kind of cool because you're looking at from one end of the problem. I'm looking at it from the other end of people trying to talk to, New Agers and that, and we both kind of come up with the same conclusions. Plus, you have the study. So, is this confirmation?
Yeah,
I think not.
Yeah,
I hope not.
I'm in the midst of writing my first book, and it's part memoir, part apologetic on the dangers of being spiritual but not religious. So, this is perfect timing to have this study come out because now I've got some, it's good. Anecdotal experience is great, but it's good to actually have some real numbers behind it. And the results are not great for people who think that they are very open-minded and spiritually advanced. More likely to be pretty narcissistic as well.
Yeah. One thing the first study showed that I think is interesting is the study was of 75% female, with the average of age of 51. And I know the New Age movement is predominantly female. You don't have a lot of men participating in it. Any thoughts on that?
I would say, I don't know if somebody's going to say that I'm just being sexist, but women are just generally more, it's pretty objective idea that women are just more emotionally driven and more into subjective experiences. And to be able to have feelings validated and no experience is invalid, and what I feel actually has makes a tangible difference to the outside world can be very, very, very attractive to women. I think especially there's I think maybe it was in the third study where, I can change the world around me with my thoughts. No matter if a woman is old enough to be a mother or a grandmother or never had children, we're all called to spiritual motherhood. So the idea that we can nurture and change our surroundings based on, our nurturing feelings, it's not a bad idea. I can see why it is attractive. It's just perverted along the way and made into something very self-promoting and selfish. There is this desire to improve the universe, and you just have to do it with your thoughts and your loving, positive vibes being sent out there. Well, that sounds awesome, but unfortunately, that's just not reality.
Right.
You can, sign up for a parish committee and do some real, work.
Yeah.
Or pray. God, the prayers. Just say your prayers versus sending positive vibes and thinking you can change the actual physical reality of the universe.
Yeah, and that kind of goes hand in hand with the lack of verifiable data to judge whether or not you're being actually progressing, and
right.
do that.
Right. You don't have to be a stickler for those numbers. That's those cold, hard numbers that don't have feelings. Here we can just, it's easier for us to understand the feelings, right? We experience them ourselves. So, we live in families and friends, right? We understand the importance of emotions. And so without the need to have some objective proof that this all works, it's a very attractive premise, but also just ultimately kind of lazy and selfish.
Yeah. I know a lot of people go on almost a treadmill of different techniques because they might try some technique, they don't feel like they're succeeding in their spiritual goals, so they'll jump to another technique. And so it might be yoga, meditation, it might be pyramidology, it might be, you name it.
Right. Yeah, maybe as you advance in your spiritual practices, maybe the thing that got you started, maybe yoga and horoscope reading got you started, but now you're more advanced and it's time to move on to bigger and better things. And what might have worked at one point doesn't work anymore. Well, that just means that you've maybe made more spiritual advancement. It's time to move on. So yeah, you can hop around as much as you want with all this stuff. Again, it's subjective. It's just based on your own feelings and thoughts and has nothing whatsoever to do with the actual objective truth.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Which
I always thought
all this is so for people who are enjoying moral relativism. This is all just, again, very, very attractive. You can decide what feels right to you.
Right. I always thought it was a huge defeater, the fact that no one ever achieves enlightenment. If you ever ask a New Ager, like, the person wrote A Course in Miracles, could they, at the end of writing their book, perform miracles? And usually they'll point to the Ascended Masters or something.
Loves that.
Yeah.
I got a family member who loves Course in Miracles, and it drives me nuts. Yeah, I mean, you could say, anybody who is answering a study on enlightenment maybe is not enlightened. The people who are already enlightened wouldn't have anything to do with this kind of questionnaire. But I remember reading a book years ago that said, well, look, they were going to teach you how to levitate, how to walk through walls. If you can't do that, that's just because you don't believe enough. Right. So it just pushes it back on you. There's no accountability for the person teaching you. Then it's on you. You didn't have the right training. You weren't advanced enough. You didn't believe enough,
That's interesting. Yeah, so the authors themselves are under that same kind of bubble universe view that, anything that's wrong is basically the other person's fault, and you have the pure doctrine.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, the only person I know that snapped out of that was El Crusta. He was in I forgot which movement he was with. But they said, he asked them that question. So who are the Ascended Masters? And they said, well, Jesus is one. And then he thought to himself, why do I need to study all these Ascended Masters? I could just learn about Jesus. And that kind of popped him out of that worldview that once he started studying Jesus, he's nothing like what, these New Age people were saying about him.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a point that I never got until I was into my Christian journey and, reading, say, C.S. Lewis, where you can't say Christ is just another guru or a spiritual teacher because that's not what he said he was. And if he wasn't the Son of God like he said he was, well, then he's a lunatic or a liar. And is that really a good person or a good spiritual teacher? No. So it's either that he is who he says he is, or he's a nut job or a liar. We should want nothing to do with him. Like you can't have that guru, that milk toast route in the middle.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So what's the takeaway from this study? How would it affect us Catholics when we're talking with people who are spiritual but not religious?
Yeah, that's a tough one because, like I said, narcissist. If you've got somebody who's a full-blown narcissist, and of course you can have, one of the things that it made me really dislike Christianity as a youth and growing up in the Bible Belt was this seeming superiority of Christian folk that I was around. So superiority happens no matter what. Now, the issue is Christianity, again, is a relational, self-giving religion from the very get-go. and New Age spiritual training stuff isn't. It's very self-oriented and is inherently selfish and lends itself naturally to narcissism. But if you have a full-blown narcissist, they're very difficult people to talk to and through. I'm thinking of family members and friends of mine who are very much into New Age and feel like they are advanced and really, really good at being spiritual. I would say it comes down to just living such a good Christian life that it becomes obvious that there's something different because of that. And not that you're better than them. We don't want to fall into the trap of being Christian narcissists.
Right.
But even just the joy, I hope that my, in my own life with family members, they've seen the change since I have converted to Christianity, and maybe just living out that joyful Christian life is something to give them pause a little bit and realize they're not getting that in their own spiritual practices. What's the difference here? Maybe I should give this Christianity thing a go, or at least a second or third look.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, so it's not really working well for me. I can't seem to walk through walls, or not without hurting myself. Maybe Christine's onto something, or
Yeah, and you get a resurrection body. Every time I get a new ache or pain, I just say, well, I'm looking forward to the resurrection body. That's even better than being able to walk this wall in this life.
Yeah. Well, hey, we got a few minutes left, and I want to talk a little bit about your ministry. Tell us how you got involved with doing the Catholic Mama podcast.
Well, it's actually Pat, my husband, who's I know is on your show, and I'm sure your listeners have heard Pat Flynn talk. He has done a podcast for a very long time, and he said, you should do it. And I said, I don't think so. And and here we are. I'm about almost 300 episodes total. And
wow.
And it's just been, for somebody who's introverted, I'm very surprised that I enjoy doing this as much as I do. But it's a real joy, and I get to talk to so many different Catholics, and really across all different geographic areas and backgrounds, and it's all through the grace of God. Because I didn't particularly want to do this when I started, and I'm in love with doing it now.
Oh, that's awesome. So, name a couple of people you had on. What kind of topics do you cover?
Yeah, actually, very timely is I just had, about a month ago, I had Father Don Calloway on talking about why the consecration of St. Joseph, we should be doing this right now. And the Pope Francis just named this coming year as the year of St. Joseph. So that episode was recent. I got to talk about it's a scripture-based discipline for children. That was a good one.
Wow.
Giving
cool.
some ideas on the purpose of discipline. It's not the rod like the stick, it's the rod like the shepherd's hook, and how to really drive home the issue. If you have, children in the home that you're still disciplining, and actually some of the advice and prayers were appropriate for me as an adult. But yeah, it's all sorts of topics. Very, is Christianity based on fear? It's everything, philosophy, day-to-day practical stuff, all of it.
Very good. Well, Christine, thank you for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, hey, coming up next, Terry and Jesse Show. Thank you so much for listening. And God willing, we'll be back again tomorrow. I'll do this thing we call Hands on Apologetics. Bye-bye, everybody.